So, can't tell what to do.
Welcome to Getting My Cheese Back on My Cracker. I am Paige Benjamin of Atomic Travels, and I had my host Copeland on the screen. As soon as he gets back, he'll introduce himself. In this episode, we are talking about part 2 of the state of the Black man's mental health. Let's go ahead and meet our co-host again. Copeland, can you tell us who you are?
I'm Cope.
Okay.
You know, I'm basically just a truck driver and a black man in America. So I am probably the case study here for what we're talking about. I go through all of the stress and stuff. And I think that I'm just here happy to provide this platform for us to have this conversation today.
Awesome. And gentlemen, please introduce yourselves.
All right, I'll go next. So my name is Tad Peterson. I'm a licensed associate counselor for the great state of New Jersey. Currently, I work for the New Jersey Children's System of Care, where we provide mental health supports for children ages 3 to 21. In addition to that, I also do outpatient work where I provide counseling to adults, children, and couples.
Okay, Julian.
Hey, what's going on? Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julian Vives. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I'm currently working at the VA Medical Center in Manchester, New Hampshire, serving our country's veterans. I also do some side work. I have a private practice out in Florida that's steadily growing. Thank you for having me here.
Appreciate it. We'll go Dev and then Russell.
Cool. Hello, everybody. My name is Devin White. I am a licensed clinical social worker here in the great state of New Jersey. I am a graduate of Morehouse College, a graduate of Rutgers University, and a current doctoral student at Northeastern University, getting my doctoral work done in organizational leadership. I currently work serving a middle school by the Jersey Shore, giving support services for students in special ed, as well as private practice work in central New Jersey, working with families, couples, and individuals. Happy to be here.
Russ, you on mute.
Is that better?
Yeah, there you go.
My name is Russell Cox. I'm a senior associate at Ernst & Young. Husband, father, black man in America with a ton of issues. And we'll unpack those today.
I appreciate the honesty there, brother. All right. As men, we are expected to be strong and have it all together. Otherwise, we're seen as weak. This can be seen as a societal barrier to seeking out wellness. What do you guys think are where do you guys think we are mentally as black men in this society?
Fractured.
Anybody can jump on. Fractured. Ooh, that's tough.
Broken.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that. Fractured, broken. I mean, where does that stem from, do you think?
I'm gonna start with the shameless plug that's gonna segue into the answer to your question.
Good job.
So in creating another podcast that specifically, and honestly, these are the only two that I'm aware of that speak to what we're talking about right now. It's called SOS, which is a cry for help, generally speaking. But it stands for super or sub. And it's because that men seem to have to either be superhuman or we're relegated to being subhuman. So you have to do this tap dance, this balancing act between chivalry and being strong and having traditionally masculine traits and ways about you. Yet you also have to be sensitive and you have to know when to be logical, when to be emotional, when to feel and when to think and when to do all of these things. And it's like, I got to carry mine, I got to carry yours, I got to be everything for everyone. And in the moment that I'm not, I ain't shit. Like,
Wow.
I'm not worth my soul. Like, it's rough. It's rough. And the worst part about it is that nobody actually cares. Like, nobody cares. So even crying out is either weak or not worth hearing, listening
Not
to,
worth trying.
reacting to, supporting. It's a really, really, really lonely, odd space. And it's crazy because you can look back at your fathers and your grandfathers and see why certain things were the way that they were. You can look at your uncles and kind of and connect in an unspoken weird sort of way, like, oh, that's why. I get it. And probably only the men will probably understand what I'm saying by not saying much of anything right there. But yeah, it's a really fractured, broken state that I think most men are in, and certainly Black men are in.
You had said something before, Ted.
I said broken, state of brokenness. And kind of just to piggyback off of Russell, like, because he really went off real quick. But some of the things, a lot of the things that he said resonated with me. Especially like just being, I remember first getting married, right, and what that experience was like. But more importantly, like becoming a new father, right? So my son is 18 months, and my wife and I were expecting our second one due in January. So I remember the moment I found out I was having a son, right? I wanted to be honest, I wanted a daughter first. And the reason why I wanted a daughter first was because my dad and I, we didn't have a close relationship, right, growing up. So for me, it was just like growing up, right? I lost my mom when I was 10. I was raised by my grandmother. I was raised by my aunt. So, right. So all of these females. So it's like, what can I give to this child, right? What can I give to this Black son? And now, granted, I ended up doing well, but it's just like that automatic fear, right? Because even talking with my uncle, like how the system is set up, man, how the system is designed, you can do everything right. You could bust your ass, you can get a degree, but you end up with no job, right? You end up on unemployment, or things don't necessarily work in our favor as men, right? As Black men, right? And like you said, we got to do the whole song and dance. We got to go the extra mile. We got to do the wow factor. And we got to do all of these extra steps. And it's like for what? Like I shouldn't have to do that, right? If you said if I do X, then I'll get this, but that's not necessarily the case, right? So you find yourself being in a vulnerable state, but like you said, nobody gives a damn. It's just like, hey, tough it up, tough shit. Like just do what you got to do and keep it moving.
No, but the phrase is man up.
Man up. You'll be all right. You got it.
Man up.
Like, you tough, right? Yeah.
You got it.
And when as
do.
you two are talking, another thing that's going through my mind is a yearning, right? We're all yearning to be understood, to be loved, to be cared for, to be appreciated, to be seen, to not have to work as hard as we do, just to meet, the bare minimum of what everyone expects from us. And I think therein lies a big problem, with our mentalities. Is we are at times, because we're a product of our environment, we're trying to live up to the expectations that were set for us. And how can any of us reach expectations we didn't set for ourselves? Why should we, do those things? So just some things I'm thinking about as you're talking, some things to add on to from a different perspective, how much we just want to be, and then to be accepted.
So to that. Oh, go ahead, babe. You got it, bro.
No. So what I was gonna just add real quick. It's funny because a lot of times people ask how you're doing, and I think to everybody's point, right? I answer I answer in a way that people kind of step back and be like, "What do you mean?" I was like, if I really told you, would you really care? Right? Like, and it's crazy because it's like we're all from different walks of life, different parts of the country, right? And it's like we all feel the same. We all have this overabundance feeling that if we
No one cares.
share, nobody really cares. So we automatically throw on that coat and just say, "I'm all right." Which is tough because it's like, I don't want to speak for anybody here, but who here is the bigger friend or the stronger
The
friend,
stronger
right?
friend, yeah.
Who here is the one that's always reaching out? And when people reach out to you, it's a whole different story, right? So, Def,
Oh yeah, man. So 2 points, right? Because everything. So like as we're all talking, right? Because we're throwing out words, fracture, broken,
Hmm.
right? And like both Russ and Ted talked about, like just that whole like pressured, right? Just that weight that comes with just being, right? So like just for no reason, like just being a black man, you automatically
Being
just have the
born.
weight of the world on your shoulders, right? On top of trying to do the right thing by your people, right? By your kids, by your significant other, right? So all these other factors on top of, like you said, going back and forth with your job, right? So like, okay, I don't want to be the angry black man, but I want to be my true self. So it's like, and then just like trying to figure out that balance, right? So one of the things that I thought that I talked about or that I thought about from when Julia was saying, like just the idea of like struggling to just be, right? So like when like I show up to jobs, so the majority of the people that I work with in my school are all white, right? The whole school probably has about, myself included, maybe seven black people, right? Two black teachers, right? And the good chunk of the students are like black and brown, right? So that just gives you an idea of like the kind of dynamics that. So like you already got kids that I don't even know, like just flocking to me because I'm a young black
Because
man
you
in the
look like
school,
them.
right? Because I look like them and I'm able to talk to them in a different language than how everyone else is. And I can say the same thing to them that they're more receptive to it because they're like, "What you know about that?" I was like, "Come on, let's stop playing." Um, so yeah, but like just that whole pressure of like, because last year I didn't have locks, right? So to show up, or like I had a big afro, but to show up with locks because that's a different connotation for certain people, right? And that's a different energy that brings, right? Just the pressure that comes with that. So yeah, so I don't know if that answered your question.
yeah, I think it does. I mean, and let's kind of dive a little deeper, right? So, what they recently passed the Crown Act, what sometime
Mm-hmm.
early this year or last year, and
Yep.
let's be honest, right? Let's throw this to Mr. Cox, right? Let's say you pulled up to Ernst and Young with some locks out of nowhere, or you came into your interview with locks.
Mm-hmm.
Would they have treated you the same?
No.
Oh.
In my opinion, I
Okay.
don't know that to be true.
I do.
Uh,
I do.
okay.
Just for the record, Ricky, I do.
Well, I make it a very intentional point to not conflate fact and feeling, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I do not know that that's true.
I still know.
I know that it's a reality for many,
Right.
for most. I think I feel like it's a layer.
Mm-hmm.
So what am I wearing? What colors am I wearing?
Mm-hmm.
How are my locks?
Mm-hmm.
Are my locks very traditional? Are my locks more fashionable?
Mm-hmm.
How have I decided to style my locks for that day? What is so how you hear me right now? Y'all know this is how I normally sound, but I have to lighten this up in a new.
Code switching.
There's no way. I'm not a big guy, but I'm not a small guy. And,
So let me ask you a question before
and I'm
you
a dark
continue.
man.
Real quick, before you continue, I need to ask you a question because I want to know because we don't want to conflate fact with feeling, but I want to know how you feel about this, right?
Yeah.
So do you really feel like the things that you have when you have something that expresses an African-centered feeling or expression of any sort, do you really feel like there are levels to it that before this became a big legal issue, were there levels that were acceptable and levels that weren't acceptable? Because when I heard you say, how do you wear your locks? Are you wearing them traditional or are they styled? That would mean that one of them might be better for them.
Yes.
And my first initial feeling, and because of the way how I live my life, most of my feelings are facts because I either feel it because I've done it or I'm about to do it. And my first initial feeling is, who are you to tell me how to wear my hair as long as I don't have lice in it? Because I know we've all heard stories of people that have went to their job with lice in their hair.
Sure.
But it's an issue how I keep my clean hair.
Yeah. And just to interject there too, like what Russ was saying, what we're talking about now, do you think that any of our counterparts are thinking about how their hair looks, what they need to
Right.
wear, how they need to
Right.
appear?
Right.
And like this is what we're talking about. We can't
Mhm.
simply just be like, we can't get up and just get out and go to work because we know that there's a certain image that we have to keep, or we think we have to keep. And I know, like, to that effect, I make sure, because yeah, in the world of psychology, is dominated by women, and of course we know, I believe as of 2019, 68% of all psychologists are Caucasian. I mean, that's a huge number. And whenever we're in these settings, and Ted and Dev, you tell me if you've had similar experiences, but a lot of people like to dress up, two-piece suits, three-piece suits for men, just very professional attire. And I don't like that at all. I come in with kicks, maybe some chinos, a sweater, and I'm good. The other day, I went to work in Tim's and whatnot. I made some jokes about it, but that's what makes me comfortable, and that's what they are going to get comfortable with. Because I
Now,
refuse to sit every day like Russ, thinking, "What should I wear? How should I?" No, I just want to be me.
so now, unfortunately, that's industry specific,
Absolutely.
right?
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We gotta, like, I think, and it wasn't always that case for the mental health professionals, right?
Mhm.
I think there's a different level of, from being a mental health professional to casework to case management to all of that in that realm, where there was always a level of you were supposed to look a certain way.
Sure.
And I think you guys in that industry have found a way to normalize looking normal for the people that you're working with, right? Because what are you doing when you're coming in looking like them? You're disarming them, right? You're making them feel like it's safe, and it's not like you don't have a white coat pulling up, right? Because that kind of triggers something different. And so we flip it over to Russ's industry, right? He is in an industry where it's Caucasian dominated, right? And the societal norms there aren't designed for us,
Right.
right? And you go to my industry in IT, we wear what we want because from 9 times out of 10, we're not, a lot of us aren't client facing.
Right.
And for those of us that are client facing, we have liberties. So I think it really depends on the industry you're in. And I think Russ is right. Like, I at one point thought going into corporate America with locks or braids was going to hinder my ability to be successful. Right. I was luckily enough able to enter the industry through a nonprofit, Black owned. And then from there, I'm already established. You can't tell me I know what I know. Right. Whereas the kid coming out of college, he has a question to ask. Do I cut it? Or do I keep it going? Right. Coming from Morehouse, right? Like, you guys have standards.
Yeah.
You guys have dress codes. You guys have specific standards. Like, can you tell me, and Russ, we're gonna kind of shift the conversation a bit, just kind of stay here, right? Can you tell me what that experience is like? Because from an HBCU plus an all male HBCU, the standards set to go out into the world.
Yeah. So again, so even with that, right, it's industry specific, right? So like psychology majors, you kind of like just hang out, just do like however you want to dress. Like for presentations, they like encourage you to dress up again just to prepare you for like the workforce and stuff. But like business majors at Morehouse or any type of major like in that space, like suit and tie, almost every class type of thing. And if you're not wearing a suit and tie, you're wearing a polo. So it's like you just like you see a bunch of guys like, oh, they're business majors. Okay, good, yeah. Because again, like it's one of those things that they have to do because it's just what the industry requires. Just preparing them for that. But in terms of dress codes, that's one of the things that again, just there's a lot of identity politics too that happen at Morehouse. In terms of like what professionalism is and like what it means to dress. So that's a different conversation. But it's not because it's like it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same conversation in terms of like even though it is HBCU, there are still certain things that they tell you to help you assimilate because that's what it is. Really, just help you to survive the world that we're in, right?
Mhm.
Because it would be great to be in the United States and never have to worry about that kind of thing. But we do. So it's like one of those things to prepare you for that.
Well, I've been blessed, I have to say, by a hard-headedness and an inability or lack of desire to conform all of my life. So I've never really been in those spaces where anybody could really tell me much of anything. I've been in performance-based spaces, so I was in sales, but because I was good at what I did, even no matter what, like nobody could really tell me anything. Then I became like a massage therapist, and now I'm in trucking. And the thing that, like, this image thing that we're talking about is like, it's a huge thing, but it's literally only one small sliver
Right.
of the things
Mhm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
because coming from not having to deal with any of this stuff to having to deal with a lot of this stuff is, and the way that we're perceived, regardless. Like you can wear a 3-piece suit. You can have a fresh shape up or
Mhm.
nice hair. You can even have a permed hair and look like Billy Joel if you want to. And you're still going to be treated as though you're not them by just about everybody, including your own people.
So I think the not them is the key point. And Julian said the word twice towards the end of what he was saying. And the word is comfort. So it's not just the image, it's the heck in depending on the industry, it's the pedigree, like
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
school that you
Mm-hmm.
go to. It's it's being able to fit into the comfort box of whomever is in control.
Mhm.
Whoever's in power has the authority to determine what they are comfortable with for their specific industry, for their specific organization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And unfortunately, most Black people in America don't have corporate power.
Mm.
We don't have industrial power.
So what
We
you're
don't.
saying is, what you're basically saying is that because these guys have power, they're able to wield it in a way that could possibly be injurious over a facet of the work that is absolutely irrelevant to the work.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
And that right there, that was the line that I drew. And I was like, nah. Like I cursed my boss out on the sales floor because because he was in a position that he could talk to me in a certain way.
Mhm.
And I've never wanted it that badly.
But
Like
see,
I've never wanted
there
to
are
be
so many.
successful
You
over
said
there.
that's the line that you drew. There are
Yeah.
so many
No,
lines
no.
that we have to draw. We have to draw
Right.
the line about our hair. We have to draw the line about our dress. We have to draw the line about our background and how much we're willing to disclose. We have to draw the line about the school that we went to. There's so many lines that we have to draw, and that's on the professional side.
Right.
Then on the private side or the social side, nobody cares.
Mm.
So now what?
So I just drew one line. And
So now
I
when
Coke
you
said, I
leave
enjoy all those
home,
lines.
you got lines. When you come home, you got lines. Where do you be?
That's a tough.
That's a deep one. Let me kind of regroup right a little bit, and I think you guys are going to where I'm trying to. My next question is: would you define the barriers for us seeking our wellness systematic, or societal norms not necessarily defined for us?
Can you repeat that, please?
Do you think the things that are preventing us from seeking our wellness to be systematic barriers in our communities or in our society, or are they really based on are they based on social norms that we're expected to meet? Because let's be honest, social norms weren't necessarily created for us. We are inherited into it.
So to that piece, real quick, I think it's both, right?
Yeah.
And but it's like they're hand in hand, right? So like the systemic thing feeds into the social part of it, right? So it's like wild thing because now that I'm thinking about it, right? So like black folks in the South, they couldn't go to regular doctors, right? So they had to go to vets. So I know this story and it sticks out in my head. Like, so a lot of people like back in the day, like I don't really want to go to a vet because I need to get my tooth pulled, but I can't go to a regular dentist, but I need this tooth pulled because I need to get on with my day. So you go to the vet, get your tooth pulled. So it's like you already don't have the mindset of like going to a doctor is something that you want to do because of the negative experiences that you have, and you just pass that on generationally. It's like, oh, we don't go to doctors here. And then it's like one of those things that you don't necessarily even question. It's like, why is no one going to a doctor? And it's like, oh, I guess we don't do it. And like no one explains to you, like you don't necessarily get those kind of stories, right? Because a lot of that stuff gets passed down because that's like grandparents and great grandparents, like that's their experiences. And a few generations down the line, you don't necessarily hear that until you're much older. Then it's like, damn, that makes a lot of sense, right? And then like again, the medical racism is ridiculous, right? So we can literally just talk hours about just that, like medical racism, racism regarding psychological standards, like all this stuff, like how most of the psychological standards are based on like white women type of thing. So it's like you're trying to analyze a black man. Of course, he looks like he's a deviant because the standard isn't set for him, right? Or black women, right? So whoever you're talking about. So I think it's definitely hand in hand, and all with the whole thing with white supremacy and racism. That's honestly what most of these things tie back to, right? Because there's literally if you look at everything ties back to white supremacy and racism, and just how folks yield that power that they have because this system in the United States is built by them for them, and just yielding it as they see fit.
I just want to throw a thought out there real quick, and then I see Russell's formulating something, so keep formulating it because I see you sharpening it up. But people very rarely ever, like we talk about crabs in the barrel, but people never talk about the psychological mindset of the crabs who were taken from under the sea and put into a barrel. And we don't talk about that a lot, and I get it, right? It's not, we know whose fault it is, but we want to talk about whose responsibility it is. And we can talk about whose responsibility it is and stay in that powerful mindset of figuring out what it is that we want to do. But let's never forget that the crabs don't belong in the barrel, but the crabs were
exactly
put in the barrel.
Exactly.
And a lot of that has broken like community in of itself, like helps your mental health. Like for me to be lucky enough to have a friend who is a fucking counselor is like, that's the type of thing that community would provide for a lot more people. But our community has been fractured because of the society that we've been put into that we have to acclimate to. So I just wanted to throw that out there that the crabs are suffering too.
Real quick before you say, because I know Russ still formulating it. Russ, you ready to go, or you still thinking about it? Because I got something just to that crabs in the barrel piece. Okay, so like I'm gonna say this. So like something that somebody told me about, like and like again, because you hear about crabs in a barrel, like how the crab is trying to get out and like people are trying to bring them down, right? And it's one of those things that someone flipped it. It's like, yeah, they're trying to bring them down because they're trying to bring them back to safety. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's one way to look at it, right? Because it's
Who said
like
it's safe?
right,
Right.
because it's like the outside is definitely is like, look, we're safer here because we know where we're all here. You can't get out of here because we don't know what's out there and we're all scared. And it's like the whole idea of like a lot of people put their fears on you because the people have told them you can't do it. So it's like, all right, cool, I'm gonna keep y'all safe, and like we just can't do these certain things. But we can
Right.
come
Or
back to
we
that.
we think that we can't do these
Right,
certain things,
right,
and that's a big fallacy. And
right.
I think, Cope, that's what you were alluding to, like
Mm-hmm.
talking about the psychological emotional status of the crabs, that where we
Mm-hmm.
don't belong, and it's easy to displace that blame onto someone else, and we know why, like why things are the way they are for us, but how many of us take on that responsibility of saying, you know what, I'm gonna put that to the side, I'm gonna do what's best for me and for us, and just keep moving forward and forge a new path. Like, it's difficult, and I know someone said, like, isn't it exhausting? It's exhausting because we're starting from the ground floor up, and it seems like we're just continuing to start from the ground floor in all these different levels, like we talked about, just hair, clothing, like what else do we have to just build up? So there's a lot.
Purge, to answer your question, is it systemic or
Come here.
um I would have to agree with Dev that it's both. Um I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, but I know that the meal is fucked up either way.
Yeah, yeah.
That we don't have, we do get to address and change both. I don't know, systemic, you got to go through policy, but that's a heavy lift. Social is more of like a individual, actually turn inward and look at yourself and look at your neighbor type of deal. And then you can sort of make some steps and changes there. It reminds me though of something my father-in-law, we were having a conversation not long ago, and my wife's family is from Barbados, right? So my father-in-law's like from Barbados, heavy accent. And we were sitting down talking, and we both made the comment and agreed that in most places, not all, but most places outside of America, a man can get up, wear the same clothes all week long, go out, sell oranges on the side of a road, build things with his hands, come home dustier than the day before, and be greeted by a loving,
Mm,
grateful wife, children, etc. As if he was truly the king of his castle. I live in DC. Brothers can make $200, $250, $300,000 a year, more degrees than a thermometer, own crib, luxury car, and still be viewed as not shit.
you said a lot, Russ, like always feeling like you're not shit, like that, your existence is just
Like you
meaningless.
just don't doing enough.
Hmm.
So it just reminded me of a social conditioning, because that's not a system in place. That's just in certain places of the world, certain things are appreciated and valued, where in other places these things are not.
Well, I
Right.
don't think
And
that the things are not being appreciated. It sounds like what it is it just the things look different. So protection and provision in a different place outside of America requires less of you to be outside of your body thinking and operating something else, as opposed to like building it with your hands. Whereas here, you don't have that opportunity. You can't even collect rainwater anymore in America. Like, that's illegal to just collect rainwater. So we don't have the opportunity, and not every man wants to be inside of a boardroom, and not every man, because I'm one of those men. Like, you're just not going to tell me certain things about me if you want, like, yeah, I need to work for you in order to live. But guess what? I only need to work for you in order to live well. As long as I survive, I'm good. And not everybody has that. I get it. But it's a system that forces you sometimes to choose levels to your dignity over your survival and your ability to provide.
So I want to bring this question back up from Ashley, right? And I would like to get everybody's perspective on this. And I think everybody's agreeing with the first part. It is exhausting, right? Like, I don't think we have the opportunity to get past it, but how do you all deal with it, right? As therapists, you guys have therapists, all right? But like in between sessions, how are you dealing with these day-to-day barriers, right? And for those that are not therapists, how do you deal with these like layered barriers?
I would think something I'm thinking about, like the first thing that comes to my mind is learning, number one, like learning about your particular value system, or yours individually and your family, because that's what means the most, the core family system. And I think having a good idea of what it is that you value, and then what goals come out of that value system, and then just staying within it and knowing that you're doing this for yourself, for your family, and because that's what you value independently. I think, at least for me, that's been most helpful in terms of just living my life and being able to just try to be.
One of the things I've learned from me is 3 words: protect your peace, right? Because at the end of the day, you can make 100, 200,000, but if you have no peace while you're doing it, I took a pay cut to work the job that I have now, but I have peace, right? And one of the things, I'm not sure what people's religious beliefs are, but God is my source, and jobs and everything else is just a resource, right? So that's another thing. But I think one of the things for me in between sessions and working with families and listening to everybody else's problem, mind you, I have my own personal things that I'm dealing with, right? But one of the things I've learned to do is really disconnect. Like, you really have to disconnect, not take shit personal. And when it's time for a break, I'll text my supervisor the next, knowing I'm not coming the next day, to tell her I'm not coming in tomorrow. I need a mental health day. And she'll be like, all right, do what you got to do. Because why? Because it's although I love what I do, it's a job of service, but it's stressful. Listen to other people's shit all day, every day. And it's certain things where you see it and you like, yo, why are we still here? And half of it, fellas, it's not the kids, it's the parents.
Absolutely.
It's the parents. It's not generational curses, it's unresolved trauma. Because why? They never dealt with their stuff. So how can you pass on something that you've never dealt with? You can't. The circle is just going to keep going. And then now you're looking at 3rd, 4th, and 5th generations still doing the same things that grandmommy did, that daddy did, that nan, same things, until somebody says, you know what? I'm ready to deal with me, but you have to be ready to go there for yourself. And that's what I tell my clients. Listen, it's not my job to change you, right? It's not my job to change you. It's not my job to tell you what to do. You have to be ready to put in the work for yourself. And you have to be ready to make those changes for you, nobody else. But until we're honest with ourselves and we're ready to deal with that, then we're going to keep doing the same song and dance. And yeah, it is exhausting. Being in a depressed state is exhausting. Being angry and stuff is exhausting. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's actually,
but what you're saying is that we have a choice. We have a choice, is what you're saying. Right. And at times we don't know that. We don't see that there are options and that we can get out of this cycle. and that there are resources, to help us get out of that cycle.
My dog, Hope's LB, uh, he's picked up DJing as an outlet. A couple of buddies who decided to run the New York City Marathon as an outlet. Y'all know I work out like an animal, and that has been my outlet for the longest. We also, and this is a really big point, because I believe most, if not all, the panel is Greek here. I don't know how y'all guys do, but the Bruz is very, very much into being around the Bruz. So as far as our even our disconnect is amongst and with each other, you know what I mean? Like that's our safe space. That's when the world comes crashing down and you need a few hours with your dogs. And when we were younger and we were closer together, like in physical proximity, we were able to do that way more
all the time.
So we were able to get that help that we needed. Now, as like full-grown adults, married, children, it's careers, not jobs, careers. It's rough. It's rough. And you have to find little nuggets to take your mind off of you and whatever your issue is. And a lot of times it's, when your issue is too much on you, focus your energy and attention on someone else. I know it seems kind of counterintuitive with so many of you guys being counselors and so much of your professional world being dedicated to helping others. But I know from on a personal note, when my stuff gets so heavy, look, man, focus on straight up directly helping somebody else with the smallest of things. The smallest of things. That's proven to be helpful for me.
So like it's a few things that a lot of y'all said I wanted to like time, like the thing that, because I want to tie back what Russ said and tie back what Ted said, like the whole idea of like unresolved trauma, right? So like when people like are sending that message like, oh, you ain't shit, depending on who it is, right? No matter if it's, so we won't get gender specific, but like people just saying like, hey, you not shit, you this and that, like that's unresolved trauma that they have from whatever situation they got going on. And then, someone is being traumatized from hearing that for, depending on who you are, like all your life, right? In different avenues, like you're not good enough, you this, you that, you that. And then like everything, like you said, we never get off the hamster wheel, right? We just keep going and keep going and keep going. And like nothing changes unless something changes, right? Unless you get to that point where like, you know what, this is too much. Something's got to give. We gotta do something different. For me, like Ted said, like you have to disconnect, because as a mental health professional, we hear so much stuff and we take on so much stuff, right? For instance, like last week was crazy for me, right? So this particular parent, she's in denial that her son has ADHD. The boy clearly has ADHD. He's diagnosed with ADHD, but she just doesn't want him to get more medication because she's worried about the stigma that comes on with medication. I was like, yes, I get that. However, it's a quality of life issue, right? Because medication will be proven to say like, hey, like if you just give him a little bit more, he'll be okay. Just a little bit more. Not saying to dose him up till he's drooling in the corner. Not saying that, but just like a little bit more. And she was just going off and so I'm hearing all this, right? So we're talking calmly, and then all of a sudden, like she just screaming, just going off for like 20 minutes straight, like in my ear, like just going off. I mean, I put her on speaker, but she had to be in my ear, because if I put her on speaker, like the kids and stuff would have heard. So I was like, so she's in my ear, and I'm just like, yep, yeah, no, I hear you.
Fear.
I get it, but it's fear, right? It's trauma from previous institutions telling her that her son is this way, right? And just like a lot of terrible stuff. And so I was like, I get it, it makes sense, but it's like I'm getting all of that stuff that's unresolved, right? And then I have to deal with my own stuff on top of dealing with the other students that I have to deal with, right? On top of a whole nother caseload, right? So it can get real tricky. And a lot of issues that I see with a lot of clinicians is they don't know how to separate, and they take a lot of stuff personal. When I was working in the drug and alcohol field, like a client would yell at my co-facilitator, and she would go in her office and cry because she would just internalize all this stuff and take it. And it's like, you can't do that, because again, their issues aren't on you. It's not about you, right? I think the sooner people understand that as a whole, right? I think things are better off. So one of the things, and I'll stop talking, is big, is like the 4 agreements. And so one of the 4 agreements is don't take anything personal, because people's issues aren't about you. How people perceive you, how people think about you is really none of your business, right? Because you can only focus on what you can focus on, which is everything that you have control over. So you got control over what you say, what you do, how you think, for the most part, right? So yeah.
So I want to first, before I introduce Steve, for the professionals, the mental health professionals in the room, like I was watching a clip where in acting, depending on how deep the actor has to go into the role, perfect example, the role of Franklin on Snowfall. They had to tell him to get out of that state so that he doesn't take that home with him, so that he doesn't consume himself into that role and many other roles like that. As professionals, are you guys taught to shut off, or how do you guys, who are rare Black men in mental health, shut off all of that and be able to go home and not bring that home with you all?
I don't think it's a matter of shutting it off, because I think like that'll be unhealthy too, because it's an experience that that we have, and I think we need to process that accordingly. So in my case, it's not a matter of like turning it off, is how I perceive it. And knowing that this is my job, and I'm working with some sick people, and I'm not going. I can't allow it to come into my life, that just really being able to perceive all of these events as something that I'm doing as a therapist, and this is just one part of me.
Sounds like you're having to be intentional.
Most definitely,
Absolutely.
My situation, I guess, is a little different. So for me, I guess it's kind of bittersweet, because my wife is also a therapist. She's a social worker. And so I think part of that is because when I come home, she understands, right? Because she's doing the work too. But then at the same time, it's just like, even when we have our conversations, I have to learn to be her husband. She has to learn to be my wife. I can't be her therapist. She can't be mine, right? So it's always is that piece. So yeah, we have that piece. She understands, but at the same time, I have to make sure I have that. And to kind of piggyback off, I think Russell or Julian, that like last night, I went to a Friendsgiving with the bros. Like one of my frat bros had a Friendsgiving, and we just connected, right? So sometimes just having that piece. And it's not necessarily running away from responsibility, but it's just like, yo, I need that moment. Same thing I try to do for her. I mean, she can't do much now because she's pregnant, but I'm like, yo, go out with your friends, go out with your home, like, because you need that. Even being new parents, y'all pray for us. Like, we had to pray for our second one. Like,
I said, Ted, where you been all my life, bro?
Yo, even being new parents, like, you know what? I'm going outside to smoke my hookah and get me a drink. I'm making me an old fashioned. Like, I just need a moment. Or sometimes I see it on her face. She needs a moment. You know what? I'm taking Eli to grandma's house. We're going to spend the day. You rest. You know what? You sleep, or you do this. Like, but you have, like you said, right, that intentionality has to be there. You got to be intentional with your time. You got to be intentional with your space. And know, like, at the end of the day, these clients that we're servicing, yeah, we are in a position to service, but they're not our families. Their issue. Once we can leave the agency tomorrow, somebody's going to be replaced. I mean, we're easily replaceable. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be able to kind of just, all right, this is work. Work is work. Home is home, because that's really what's important. That's my legacy. That's my foundation.
Hey, Purge.
So you want to chime in? I wanted to introduce Steve real quick.
I'll be real quick. Which was, it sounds like for the mental health counselors in the room that it's about boundaries, right?
Right.
About boundaries in your personal life and boundaries in your professional life.
Yep.
Right.
You have to have that. Yeah.
Steve, could you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
What's up, Russ? I'm Steve Opara. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I work as a emergency care technician as well as a intensive care technician at the VA in Pittsburgh here, and I'm a Navy corpsman also. So I see a lot of aspects of mental health.
And so the reason I wanted to kind of get Steve to chime in on this is, you know, we have a lot of like pretty much everybody here have conversations with like, Steve, like, you know, similar to the other brothers on here, how do you manage, right, going from the emergency room or the intensive care room and going home and not internalizing all of that, and maintaining that? Like, look, Steve is the nicest bro you'll meet. So if you make him mad, right?
I'm pretty nice too, though.
You know, Copeland.
No, Copeland.
But Steve is a really like nice dude. So, you know, to ever see him off kilt or in a position of frustration or anger, it really takes a lot. So I wanted to kind of give that perception of Steve. But like, Steve, how do you maintain that? Because it can't be easy.
Oh, of course it's not easy. I mean, and a lot of it is I've had to do the work, right? So I've had to sit with myself and understand myself. So when you ask me, how do I process a hard day in my professional life, it didn't always look the same. Like before, I used to go to the gym, but then I realized I wasn't really sleeping much after the gym, so I worked nights. So I would be up all day and I'd go back to work and I become more irritable. So like I had to try a multitude of different things. It led with me going to therapy. Like I originally went to therapy because I thought I was having trouble communicating with people. Turns out I had more trouble than just that, like everybody else, you know. So like I had to unpack all the different issues that I had going on internally before I was able to pour from my cup into other people and be okay with that. And I've been in a multitude of situations with like racism and you know, being called a nigger at work and like having to still treat these patients at the same time and treat them with a professionalism and an amount of respect, although personally that's not where I want to be. So just to answer the question and bring it back full circle, I had to spend a lot of time on myself and I had to kind of know where to go and center. Like a lot of times I have to journal, I have to meditate, I have to stretch. So I have a multitude of ways to kind of decompress after a rough day.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, I have a rather unhealthy way of dealing with the stresses in my profession. I just give it back to him.
Because you can in the trucking industry. I mean, you guys, it's dog eat dog out on the road, right?
Like,
so at the end of the day,
I just wanted to highlight that because it's like one of the things that I think that a lot of people in general tend to not be able to understand is the stresses that they don't deal with. And like my stresses that I am dealing with now, being a business owner, I know for a fact that they pale in comparison to what it is that you guys have to go through day in and day out, like being in those walls. But it hurts more. I'm just telling you. Like I hate being. So I just give it back to them. Like if I feel like you're not doing your job, I'm going to tell you that. Like I'm going to tell you you're not doing your job. Ask you what you're going to do about it, and then when you give me we're going to kind of pretend like it didn't happen and move on. Now I'm going to tell you you suck. And I'm going to explain to you how I feel about my decision. Like I'm going to take responsibility and I'm going to tell you how I feel about my decision to not fully check you out with other sources because I made a mistake in doing business with you. And so I go balls to the wall, like out there, like I'm cursing out brokers, shippers, everybody, because they all got me messed up. And so honestly, when I come home, I just take a shower and I'm straight.
So
I'm not bringing none of it home.
That's a big thing. That's a big thing.
Because it's not mine.
I wish I could. Listen, I wish I could talk to some of my family's houses. Talk to some of my parents. Have you in my back pocket. Coke, talk to
He's like, look, Coke, talk to him real quick.
Right, talk to him real quick. Let him holler at you real quick.
something that we've all said though, right? Like we are very aware of what's going on, systemic point of view, from a societal point of view, but each and every one of us have said, I know what I need, and I'm going to do these set of things, right? So like not displacing the blame on what's going on or who's in control of what. It's like, what can I do for me and for my family? And that's where that focused intention allows all of us to be able to continue to do our jobs and to be husbands, fathers, brothers, everything.
So can I ask you real quick, because that's a good, I mean, I'm going to take those roses since you're passing them out so readily, but how do we spread that? Because I feel like I'm on a very special call right now, and everybody that's, privileged enough to see this conversation is seeing some really stellar, like, men on this call. But except you, Russell.
Yeah.
But how do we give this to? Is this something that can be given to the masses, or is this literally a space that's only reserved of peace that we have? Is that only reserved for a select few?
I don't think that this is something necessarily we can, package up and give it to the masses, but what we're doing here, this is a very vulnerable and intimate setting. And this is something that as men, especially men of color, we were hardly ever taught to do that or know how to do that. And just having this deep level of intimacy, talking about these things, right? Like what bothers us and what we do, and being aware of that. I think really sharing that with, who, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be just men, just with anyone, but finding people and being more comfortable, being intimate, being vulnerable, and having open conversations. I think that's how we spread it, from person to person.
No, absolutely. Like just to jump in with that. So it's two things. I've had this conversation about, like, so one of the one Frederick Douglass quote that, like, it's easier to make strong children than to fix broken men. In the sense of teaching, because again, you get to a certain age, like a lot of people in general are like stuck in their ways, right? So it's like reaching out, like, okay, we made all these mistakes as men. Let's talk to our kids and say, hey, this is what we did, so y'all don't have to do this, right? So in terms of like packaging up and doing it that way, I feel like that's one way of dissemination, right? Like different youth groups, right? So Kappa Alpha Psi has the Kappa League and our Guy Right program, right, where we give back and we talk about we have these kind of conversations with our young men who are in middle school and high school, and try to like help them develop emotional intelligence, to one, prepare them for all the shit that happens as a man, a black man or man of color in the world, on top of like how to manage that individually. So like having conversations like that, having bigger programs, using the resources that we have, right? Different conferences that, to help, again, talk to other high school students who aren't in Kappa League, who aren't in these organizations, to say, hey, look, this is what it is. This is what you got to do, and doing it that way.
I'll just jump in real quick. So just listen to Devin and Julian. So for me, right, I remember getting out of graduate school, right, and you graduate and you take your exam and get your license, all that stuff, right. So for me, it was kind of this concept like, I'm going to change the world, right. I'm going to save everybody, right. I want to help everybody, but I realized that my job, right, sometimes it may be for me to plant the seed. And that's it, right? Sometimes it may be for me to water that seed or nurture it. It may not be for me to see the whole process, right? But at the end of the day, if I could make a difference, or if there's something that I've said or something that you gained from our session, and you could take that and you can carry that on. I've worked with kids, since when they was 14, that they're in college now. Like just things like that. Because this job, as we can tell you, it doesn't yield immediate gratification. Right, when you meet with this person, you don't know if they listening. They could be telling you to kiss they at whatever. You never know if you're getting through. You never know if, hey, what's today a good day? Like did they actually get something from it? But then when you see them down the line or something is said, that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me going back every day. Like, you know what? Y'all gave me hell last week, but I'm gonna give y'all another week. Give you another week, and it's just one of those things, man. You to have a heart for it.
Yeah.
This field is not for the faint of heart.
Not at all. Not at all.
Having
And I
love,
think-
pure, like it's pure love for humanity, man.
Mhm.
I
So
think-
like going back to another thing you said. So I'm gonna say two things and I'm done because I'm gonna, real quick. So going back to what
Don't
Russ
worry
said
about it. You
before,
don't have to
right?
be quick.
You said what? Was that
I
what?
said,
Coach?
don't worry about it. You don't have to be quick. Just
Yeah.
You're right.
clear.
So right, that's important. So one of the things that Russ said was like how nobody cares, right? It's like Russ, this is our first interaction with you, right? Like you and I, right? So or all of us, and it's like I care, right? So it's one of those things like just like I like all this stuff that you're talking about, like I care. So like we can exchange information and stuff. And if you feel like no one cares, like you need somebody to holler. I know you got your frat bros and all that stuff, but you know you want to go to the better side of 1911 and you want to have a conversation, we could do that, right?
Can we remove him now?
See, we weren't gonna take it. We weren't gonna take it to the 1911 conversation.
I mean, I'm just saying.
we just. I mean, it was an intentional 1911 conversation, but you know, you brought it there. You know, you guys are outnumbered, just so you know.
Absolutely. That don't mean nothing. But anyway, I've been outnumbered plenty of times before. Anyway, but like all jokes aside, like when you said people, so like you do have people that care, right? Because even like your frat brothers, like they care about your well-being, right? That you got people in your corner that care about your well-being, and it's like it's hard for us to see to get past, like to get out of our own bubble and be comfortable, to say like, hey, I need help. Because I'm sure if you did that, you just try to text to like your chapter bros or whatever, and somebody, yo, give me a call. Like so, there are people that care that are out there, and I think. Going back to what Ted said about like, you know, y'all gave me hell last week, so I'm gonna give y'all another week. I think that's a special skill that comes with the job because we have teachers and they're working at school, so like it's a unique situation. Like we have teachers, and even you can like spread it across the globe of like or the spectrum of like caseworkers, anything like people who deal with challenging clients, right, or challenging kids, and they keep that grudge. Like a kid gave them hell on Monday, so on Tuesday. They're gonna give them hell too. It's like that's not how that works. Like these are children, right? Like if a children's acting out, they're saying that they need something, right? So us as adults are supposed to figure out, okay, you need something. Let's help you figure out what you need versus, oh, well, you annoyed me yesterday, so I'm gonna ignore you today. It's like that's not gonna get you the results that you want. And as an adult, like you should ideally know better, but again, people have a lot of unresolved stuff that they don't deal with because they're not comfortable sitting with themselves and like they're not doing that work. So it's one of those things that like my kids give me hell on Monday, I might want to shake them or choke them on Tuesday, but you know, but like I you know, we have those conversations. I'm like, look, what you did yesterday was unacceptable. I was like, I don't do that to you. Like, let's not do that to me. And like you have these conversations, and the fortunate part about like looking like a lot of my students or most of my caseload, I can really like kind of get real close to them. I'm like, cut that shit out, like that kind of thing that other people may not have that space,
They can't do that.
and it's received different, and it's like, okay, you're right. So yeah.
I think it's definitely
So how do we show up in a way that
Go ahead, Steve.
So I was going to say, how do we show up in a way that others can emanate? How do we show up in a way? How do we show up as a beacon to others? And it's just what we're doing, having these conversations and just being us, showing up like how we are, and just kind of moving the way we move. And when we help other people, we have to understand that you're not going to help everybody. And people that are aligned will align to what you're saying to them. So when you interact with somebody and you are able to get to them, there's that fulfillment of purpose, then there's that drive that keeps you going. You know, like in the ER, I can't save everybody that comes through the door, but if I save that one person, that gets me ready for the next 100 people, you know, and that's how I show up, you know, in aspects of mental health, and that's especially how I show up in our community, trying to get others to the point where they're spending the time with themselves to do the work. Because everybody in here has made a personal decision to sit with themselves, which isn't easy, not comfortable at all, and do the work, because everybody has issues, everybody has trauma, and everybody has things that they need to work through. Now, whether or not you decide to do the work is where you're going to get the outcome. So just being a beacon and having conversations like this, sharing my own experiences, how I got here, and how I go about things. That's what I do.
Two things. I wanted to address two of the comments that were made in the chat. One about not saying that no one cares, and it's being a defense mechanism. And I can understand that. But when we say no one cares, that's how I have been made to feel my entire life. And coming into an awareness of who I am, what I'm dealing with, what I'm navigating, and recognizing the difference in how I'm treated versus the way I'm expected to treat others versus the way that others treat others, I am perpetually on the short end of the stick. And it makes me feel as if no one cares. I know that people care about me. I know my friends care about me. I know my family cares about me. I'll give an example, a generic type of thing. I'm married. I know my wife loves me. I know my wife cares about me. How I'm expected to treat her when something is troublesome to her and how I am treated when something is troublesome to me are very often two starkly different things. And it's tough when you are communicative and expressive about what caring looks like to you, and you're aware of what caring looks like to someone else, and you do the things that are necessary for that other person, and those same things aren't done for you. That's not just in marriage, that's in friendship types of relationships, that's at work, that's in a number of places and spaces that I constantly see men and men of color perpetually on the short end of the stick with. So that's the
no, you got to go ahead. Keep going.
Are we broken? Is it a broken system that we're trying to navigate as opposed to us being broken? Again, yes, I do. I think Purge said it when he asked the question: is it systemic or social? And we replied that essentially it's both. But I don't feel like I'm operating a broken system. I know that I'm operating in a broken system. I feel broken. I feel the pain of not being heard, not being understood, not being appreciated. I feel those. And it doesn't feel like I'm a cog in a wheel. It feels like I'm the wheel and the cog, and neither one of them fucking work.
Right. That's your perception of everything. Yeah,
for sure.
That's a bar, though. Yeah.
So the thing that I wanted to say though, to this question about how do we push it forward, I think that it's certainly a pay it forward type of situation where these types of spaces and interactions with the brothers are absolutely essential. It's also essential. You got to be honest with yourself first. You have to be so brutally honest with yourself about the things that you aren't necessarily hitting the mark on, or the way you need to improve. You also need to be honest about the way that other people in your world and in your space aren't showing up for you the way that they need to. And you have to not be afraid to voice that, to communicate that. There's a phrase, I'm sure you brothers all know about the phrase, happy wife, happy life, right?
Never heard it.
A brother in church told that to me. Like it wasn't too long ago. And I've heard that so much. And I said, yo, wait a minute, hold on. I'm an equal person in this whole situation. What do you mean? So as long as you're happy, we happy? No. And I understand where the idea comes from, but I think that needs to be revamped. And we certainly don't need to adopt that type of ethos. We have to really be honest about, yo, this thing hurts me. This thing makes me happy. This thing makes me feel this way. This is what love and appreciation looks like to me. And expect and require that of the people that you interact with. And if they're not willing to do that, that's also their prerogative. You then have to separate yourself from that because you, like Ted said, you have to protect your peace at all costs.
So let me jump in real quick. You guys said a lot. I really appreciate you guys' candor. I want to piggyback off of something Ted said and Russ said, and Russ just repeated: protecting our peace. Right? Like, if you notice, the logo for Getting My Cheese on My Cracker are multiple pieces of a head. Right? And a lot of times we have to protect the pieces of us to maintain our sanity. And this is what this conversation about is, right? Where are we? Are we a whole puzzle or are we broken? And it sounds like we're broken, right? I want to get to a point where we can talk about how do we get to a place of becoming whole. Now, Russell, you touched it sounded like it was a sore spot for you. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit. How do we allow our women, or how do we help our women become a place of peace for us? Right? Is that even possible? Because to your point, are we a unit or are we just one-sided? Are we expected to be, as men, we're expected to be protectors, providers, the social norms of gender norms, which weren't literally designed for us, right? How do we allow ourselves to find peace with the women that we're with?
I honestly don't know. But I do know that in seeking out and working on my spiritual relationship and my relationship with God has allowed me to have peace with myself. So whenever there's discord with my wife and we're not operating as a team in my eyes, or we're just not connecting, seeing eye to eye, I'm still okay.
Wow.
No, I think that's powerful.
That's deep. That hit my spirit, Russell. And the reason why I say that on the day that we got married, part of my wife's vows was, I hold the key, you hold the key, but God is the locksmith. So when either one of our keys is working or the lock is jammed or something like that, we have to go back to that foundation. So that hit me. That hit me.
I just want to say real quick, I always respect like a spiritual. Come here. Okay, go away. I always respect a spiritual perspective on things, very much so, but I fear that sometimes so for me in life, a lot of the things that I would need from a partner are not tangible at all. Like all of the tangible things I can literally, like if it exists somewhere that I can go and grab it, then there's a way that I can go and get it. And I would put that on myself. And so a lot of the things that I would need from my partner would be completely intangible. And so for me to keep going wouldn't look bad at all. It wouldn't look bad on me. It wouldn't look bad on her. But at no point would I be getting that support that it is that maybe I don't require it. Because, we're gangsters. You know what I mean? We're tough. We're going to do this no matter what. Because at the end of the day, if your wife was to leave you, if your wives were to leave you, if you guys were to lose your practices, the next day, from what I can feel so far, you're going to get up and get back at it. It's going to hurt, but we're all going to get back and get at it. So I've started to feel like if I'm going to be in this thing with somebody, and if that's what I need, then that's what I need. And I think that a lot of us need that and want that, but we're not requiring it because it's literally just a thing for us. Because even some of these people can be that for the kids and other people who they look at, mind you, because they don't look at them as strong as us. So it's not even a malicious thing. It comes from the level of respect that we have. But I think that, you know, as a single man, if we were to start choosing our women more for that quality, then that quality would start to gain more value, because it's literally never, I'm lying, it's not, because we have started hearing the be his peace thing, but the what does that look like is going to take more of these conversations so that we can say it. Because like, for somebody to be your piece might be a little bit different. For somebody to be my piece would be like coming to me with like an eighth and a backwood, you know, and like.
Right. So, and just to interject, like going off of that, you know, and Russ and Kobe both alluded to this. So, like the first part, going back to the question, how do we, you know, like get our women to like be on the same page, right? Am I
Yeah.
correct in saying that? So, you know, number one, I think knowing who we are, right, being very self-aware and knowing what we want and need is what, you know, Cope was saying. Then that next part is that effective verbal communication, because we deal in the intangibles, right? All of our wants and needs are something that are intangible, and how is someone else going to know what we want and need if we don't communicate that effectively to them? So there, I know I talked about it last week, and I think there was a comment made because I said, no, we need to educate our women, right, on how we need to be loved. I don't think there's anything wrong with that term, educate, you know, or show them, teach them, whatever you want to use. But I think I'm not sure of any other way of how to get that through to be able to change the dynamics.
I mean, to that point, right? So it's like one of those things, like it's an intangible thing. So you need to be able to show someone or demonstrate. So in that, like when teachers are showing someone 2 + 2, you're teaching them, right? So it's the same concept. And ideally it works both ways, right? So you have to teach someone how to love you the way you want to be loved, right?
So Julian, you're also married though, fam. You gave a very buttoned up response to that question.
That's not just within the confines of marriage. That could be anyone, whether it be a friend, you know, the platonic relationship, or as well. You got to be able to you got to be able to tell them what you want and need, and not just assume that they're going to know what you want and need or how to do it. Because as we've been talking about for the last hour and 15 minutes, like, you know, there's all these different expectations that everyone else has for ourselves, and we lose ourselves in those expectations. So when we figure out what we want and need, we need to be able to now give that to you.
I think the underlying layer behind Purge's question is when you when you do that and you are not in alignment, when you communicate, when you express, when you show and demonstrate, and still, because for all those who have been in relationships, we know that end still is inevitable, right?
I would contend that it's because you're condoning the behavior, because a lot of us here, I know the type of women that we get beautiful women, right? So if at 6:30 at night we have an issue because she kicked our gold boots, and it's like, why are you kicking my gold boots? Or she kicked your cane, right? And you're like, why are you kicking my cane? And so now you're mad because she kicked your cane, and she's like, F your cane or F your gold boots. But she's serious about this. But it's 6:30 though, right? So, and no reconciliation. Like, what are you gonna do? Huh? What are you gonna do about it? Nothing. So 6:30 passes. You know what I mean? You guys might get something to eat. You're still a little mad, but you still hold the door open. Because why? You're a good man. You're still gonna hold the door open. You still might even go get the food. You might even drive. Might take her. Still pull out the chair. You get home. You still mad. But she look good, don't she?
Yeah, but because me being that has
No,
nothing
no.
to be
You don't get
loving.
to excuse
And
your
her being
excuse before I drop it on you. So you go home with this beautiful woman, because I know how black women are built. We see them all the time. These women are crazy, and they don't even got to be 10s from Instagram. Like the one right around the corner, like sickening how good these women look, right? So you go home, and then you make love to your wife, regardless of what you receive. So the truth of the matter is that it doesn't really matter, because we don't make it matter. We still give exactly what it is that's required of us, no matter what it is that we receive. And I believe that that's because we've been taught that what it is that we are supposed to do is like an expectation or a requirement. And what we get should be the basis of it all, should be the satisfaction of a job well done, right there, boy, yeah, like a donkey. But the other stuff is all just icing on the cake.
So we're gonna reel this back, right? So that's not where I wanted it to go, but but speaking from a single person, we'll let Cope maintain his point of view, right? Uh, for those in relationships, I'm not trying to get y'all in troubles because I know your significant others are watching. But I think to kind of move forward here, right? Communication is key, right? At each phase of your relationships, there was a give and take in determining what was acceptable. I do agree with Copeland to an extent. There is a layer of enabled behavior, right? Something of which we realize I don't mind that happening for the greater good of us, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not necessary. Once you go into that union, as the three of you already know, and I'm learning, is once you go into it, it's no longer about me or her. Well, let me rephrase it. It should no longer, I'm gonna say should, right? It should no longer be about me or about her. It should be about us or we or the unit or the family. And so with that being said, I think we have not seen examples of that to really kind of mirror, right? Unless I'm wrong. I mean, I haven't seen it in my lifetime.
Not good.
Right. And so as we move forward, we need to find a way to be more vulnerable with our significant others. Copeland, you can stand out of this one because you don't want to be vulnerable, right?
No, I do want to be vulnerable.
Okay.
But my vulnerability is Mjolnir. It's not, you're either worthy or you're not. And I'm not about to help you lift the hammer. And the truth, and it's funny,
that's the
because
dichotomous talk that we've been talking about. There's, but life is not black or white.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
I'm afraid.
I'm working. Yeah, no, it is what it is. It's fear, because I have a lot. Like, I have a son, I have a life that I'm building for him. And like I told you about these women and their siren song, like, you can get distracted. And I wouldn't mind being distracted by the right person, because that wouldn't be a distraction. Like, it would be the support and everything that is necessary to get things the way, because my hour is him now. Like, my life, everything that I have is about him. So the right person would be able to make that work. I know that I'm afraid of me not being able to tell who the right person is from across the street. Like, that's problematic for me. And I know that it's like, that's why I talk to my friend / therapist, Julian, because it affects the way I interact with people. Like,
send him a check, Julian.
Send him a check.
Send him an invoice. Send him an invoice. Yeah, send him an invoice.
Send him an invoice. I can't deal with that.
You're about to be in collections.
That big of a
So let me kind of change the conversation to we need to talk about future, right? Like, how do we change this? Like, but first I want to start with you all. If you were to look back and talk to your younger selves about becoming the man that you would like to be, well, is there anything you would have told your younger selves to change or to do to change the way you kind of experience life as a black man?
That's crazy. That's
That's
crazy because I think about this. I think about this often. And honestly, if I were to go back and talk to 15, 21-year-old Steve, I wouldn't tell him shit. I wouldn't tell him anything because I am right where I am because of everything that I've been through. Every hardship, every heartbreak, everything I've gone through. And it took earlier this year, I lost my father due to COVID. And that was very heavy on me. And it took me losing him and realizing that I learned so much from him, not from what he taught me, but from the things he didn't teach me. So like going through that process, it's like being in a tunnel and then you get to the end of the tunnel and then you just see all your surroundings. Like you can see everything through your peripheral now. So nah, man, I wouldn't tell him anything because I'm living this experience and it's uniquely my own, and everything's coming to me as soon as at right on time. So yeah.
I like that. Kind of along those lines too, kind of just like Steve. The only thing I would tell myself is just it's okay. Like I would tell myself it's okay to be yourself, because just being authentic and being genuine, just that's what makes me comfortable with who I'm, which allows me to have healthy relationships with other people. And there's been several points in time where society, or whoever you want to dictate as the man at the time, that they encourage you not to be yourself, to fall in line, to do what whoever's doing, whatever's popular. And that creates resentments towards other people, and also towards yourself, that a lot of anger and depression and anxiety. And if there's one thing I can say, is just be like yourself unapologetically, and and continue to believe in who you are, and do it, and believe in what you're doing.
I would say two things. I would tell my yourself that there's power in submission, and try to explain what that means. I know that I wouldn't necessarily receive it, but at least I would have heard it, and hopefully it would have touched me sooner than it has. I would also tell myself that there are 4 things that you can control, and that's your preparation, your effort / work ethic, your attitude, and your responses. But you cannot control outcomes. So work on that PAIR acronym, and then do your best, and just leave the rest, bro.
To kind of piggyback off of Steve, I don't think I would tell myself. I would tell myself it's okay not to be okay. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times I think when we go through experiences in life, sometimes we may not understand why we're going through it, or we may even question why we're going through it, and it may not make sense, and we may be frustrated and so on and so forth. But a lot of the experiences that I went through, especially like losing my mom, I can't begin to tell you how many people come to me regarding grief. Like one of my frat bros approached me yesterday randomly, haven't talked to him in like 3-4 years, no lie, was like, I just need to talk to you for a minute. We went out in the hallway. He told me his father passed away like 2 months ago. And he was like, yeah, I just been meaning to talk to you. And come to find out what was really the kill, we have the same name. I have the same name as his father. So for him seeing me triggered something in him. But for him to just be vulnerable and share that. So again, had I not gone through that experience at 10 years old, and I'm 36 now, like I wouldn't be able to have that conversation with him. You know what I'm saying? So I think our experiences shapes who we are. Our experiences are what makes us. Right now, granted, it may not have been the best experience. Unfortunately, sometimes we can't. We have to kind of play the cards that we've been dealt, and that doesn't necessarily make it right. But if you learn something from that, and you're able to look back and be like, yo, but the crazy thing is, we're all survivors. We're all here, in spite of what we've been through. In spite of like they say, we don't look like what we've been through, but we're here, right? We're here to tell that story, where somebody else may not be here to tell that story. You know what I'm saying? There may be a different outcome for them. So
I actually feel the same exact way because, and I feel the same exact way. My feelings changed 3 years ago because now that I have my son, I would never want to change anything to change that. Like that would be the thing that would keep me responsible if I was talking to myself in the past. Because at the end of the day, the person who I was back then, if I would have told myself how things really are now, I would have been angrier. Like my anger came from a level of awareness that was, I guess, rare for a person in that space. So had I told myself anything else, I would have got angrier, and I would have probably made things even worse, you know, or better. Who knows? Maybe I would have became a vigilante, but I may not have my son, and that's too big of a risk for me. Like I don't mind all of the stuff that I've been through. Like none of it killed me.
That's good.
Yeah, that's amazing. I appreciate y'all being very open about that. Dev, did you say something or did I miss that?
So you know what? A few people said what I was going to say. So I was like, oh yeah. So to answer your question, no, I didn't say anything. But I think,
Okay.
again, just to say something, I don't think I would tell, like, in terms of, like, I don't think I would tell my younger self anything besides just really just focus on yourself. Like focus on yourself and connect back to source, and stay connected to source. So that would probably be the thing that I would tell myself.
So where do we go from here? All right. How do we break the societal / systemic issues that prevent us as Black men from progressing, whether it be professionally, mentally, emotionally? How do we break these systemic curses that we constantly, how do we break the feeling of being broken or dismantled as the conversation started? How do we get past that? Or how do we not pass that on to Copeland's child, Ted's child, Julian? I'm not sure if you have children or not, your children, right? Like, how do we break this cycle, as you mentioned earlier, Julian? Because this is all about that. Like last episode, we had a parent. She said she was happy to see Black men talking about this, and what was the phrase? She feels inspired for his future, right? Like, how do we inspire the next generation?
You know, we've all said it in some capacity about being broken or brokenness or broken system, and that is exhaust navigating that. Why would we want to try to change or fix that? I think creating something new of our own, of our ideals and value system, is where we should be focusing our energy for the future. Because what is the logical point of trying to revamp a broken system or navigate that? Let's create something new, something that we want, something that's in accordance with our value system, and we go from there.
I also think we gotta also change the narrative of us being broken. We have to start in this image of knowing that we're not broken. We may have gone through some things, we may have experienced some things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we as a people or we as Black men are broken. And that's what we need to be teaching the next generation. We need to empower them and instill in them that they are kings and queens, and they should know where they come from. And that knowledge of self is what the system is afraid of. The system that's already put in place. That's what they're afraid of. So I think the more that we pour into ourselves, the more we pour into our children, and teaching them where they come from, who they are, and how powerful they are, that's going to lead to the better system and the better situation overall for all of us.
Just to add to that, I think for me, I think it's modeling that behavior, and the reason why I say that is working with children and parents, right? Sometimes parents is like, oh, my kid does this, he does this, and I'm like, and even my wife has to check me sometime, right? Because sometimes my son, he's 18 months, he'll do something, and I automatically like just go for that moment, and she's like, that's you, like you do that, like you, that's like that's an 18-month-old you, and I'm like, yo, I do that. So like, I really have to check myself sometime, right? And I told my parents this at some time too. Is like, okay, so you mad that your child curses you out and scream, but how do you respond to your child? You curse, yell, and you scream, right? So sometimes I think it really goes back to that piece of us checking ourselves at the door first, and sometimes modeling that what it is that we want to see or how we want to be treated, and putting those boundaries and things in place. Like I think where did he go? He dropped up. I said earlier, like, this is how I need to be treated, or this is how I expected to be treated, or these are my boundaries, or this is what it is. I say either you respect my personal space, or you could be gone. Like putting those things into place.
So I'll just say this, right? And, we said this a lot in different capacities, right? But it's like you gotta take your home base first. You gotta take care of yourself. Take care of yourself first, because if we're trying to exist and we're trying to flow in the system, like you can't pour out of an empty cup, right? So you have to do things that that keep you fulfilled. Figure out what that looks like so you can pour out to other people, but then also realize like, all right, cool, I'm about to be empty. So again, going back to like the boundaries piece, like, all right, this is enough, and then go back, rest, recharge, and then go back at it.
Usually after the four of you talk, I don't really have anything else left to say, because you kind of like, I'll just be taking like big ass chunks of the pie. But I would probably not feel right if I didn't jump on and say that, because you're all where I'm at. Like for me, it's my son is the way that I have to change things, because I know how I feel in the world, and I know how I feel that people have reacted to me. And my dad was in the world, and I know what he understood to do, but I know that he was doing the best that he could do. So it's up to me to also do the best that I can do with what I have. So for me, it's really about allowing my son to feel, and just talking and being there with him. And, like whatever he wants to talk about, we're going to talk about it. Like, I don't do the because I said so things. Like sometimes I'm like, because it's dangerous and I need you to listen to me. We can talk about it in a little while, but we got to go. But for the most part, like, come on, I'm a pothead. Like, where am I rushing to? I mean? Like, we usually have time for the conversation, even when it's time for him to go home. Like, he's been telling me recently, like, I want to stay with you forever. And then he kind of altered it, you know what I mean? Now it's just 100 years now.
Okay.
So he's getting a little bit more reasonable, but even before I have to take him back, before I go back on the road, we have to have a conversation about it. Like, we have to talk about it. And it's not annoying. I was about to do one of those things that me and Julian talk about, was misnaming a feeling. It's saddening. It breaks my heart, because I hate the fact that I have to go to work and I can't just go build a house and like hunt other people's pets for food and shit. Like, I have to go out and work, and it hurt. It's like that breakup moment right there has actually stopped me from picking him up on days when I have like just a day or two, because it's almost like it's not worth that day for me to have to put him through that. Because although it's not the trauma of abuse, or it's not a big T, but it's a trauma. He doesn't like it. Like, he cries, and it's so I don't even know how we got here. But
it's all good.
I do want to say real quick. I do want to say, Cox, it's dope to hear the dialect that you have with your son, because I come from a generation of being seen but not heard in my house. I'm sure a lot of us have. So just knowing that Black men are progressing to the point where they're allowing their children to express themselves and to have dialogue with them at such a young age, then when he's 16, 17, there's not going to come a time where he's going to act out of frustration and not be able to tell you where it's stemming from, or you being able to kind of digest whatever he's going through with him. And I think that's the goal, and therein lies the progression, and that's what we're talking about. So kudos to you, man. That shit is dope.
I appreciate
it.
it.
And what I'm hearing across the board here is that, one, we shouldn't be working within the system that wasn't developed for us in the first place. as intelligent beings from our community, we should be able to start developing our own systems, our own standards, our own norms, and breaking away from those systems that weren't never meant for us in the first place. Two, communicating, ensuring that we're communicating with our youth, letting them understand that the things that we have intended for them is not necessarily because we want to, is because it's necessary for their safety in Copeland's point of view. And then three, I think it really comes down to love, right? We need to show one another love so that our youth can reflect that, can imitate it. Because if we're not showing each other love, why would they show it, right? And so with that being said, I am so thankful for having you all on the show. Would you guys like to leave a last remark? I take that as a no.
I think we left everything on the table.
Yeah, man. I was like, I don't know
that's
what
the
else
best
I got.
part.
I mean, the best thing is I love y'all brothers. I love anybody that's listening. Anybody, like, I love our people.
Yes.
Like, even if we don't love ourselves, so like, just know that, like, again, for what it's worth, like, that somebody loves you, and that's me. So yeah, so I love each one of you gentlemen for taking this 2 hours out of your Sunday. You could be doing anywhere else in the world, but you're here, doing this good work. And I appreciate it. So again, like, I get rejuvenated from being in these kind of spaces, hearing brothers share their stories, share their strength, and share, like, how they doing the damn thing. And
Even if we do have to share our space with Kappas, which is unfortunate.
I was waiting.
Under these circumstances.
Under these
circumstances, it's accepted. But yeah, I definitely want you guys to just stick through. We're gonna end it here. I'd like to thank everybody that joined via the chat, communicated with each other, asked questions to the guests. This really meant a lot to us. This is only part 2. We have our last and final episode next week, where we close out the month with an amazing another set of brothers. Please feel free to tune in. And once again, thank you. All right, fellas, stick by.